القدس تنادينا القدس تنادينا قدس تنادي قدس تنادي قدس تنادينا.
الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. صدق الله العظيم. Surah An-Nahl of the Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares, and we sent down the book, yani the Quran, on thee, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, that this book might explain all things. Did you hear that? That this book might explain all things. And therefore that this book might explain the strange economy around the world today, in which wealth no longer circulates through the economy, in which the rich are now permanently rich, forever and ever and ever, and the poor are now imprisoned in permanent poverty forever and ever and ever. This book will explain it. This book will explain that strange economy in which the rich grow ever richer and the masses around the world are now being imprisoned in a new slavery. This book will explain it. And in this book there is guidance. How do we respond to that strange world out there? That explanation and that guidance have come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as rahmah. And for those who have the good sense and the wisdom to go search for it through the hours of the night, with tears in their eyes and tears in their heart. And when they find it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses them with it. They accept it and they embrace it and they apply it regardless of the price they have to pay. Bushra lahum, good news and glad tidings for such people. They will understand what others cannot, not even with a PhD from the London School of Economics. They will understand what others cannot. And they will succeed when others will not. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and glorify Him this night. And we beseech Him most humbly for His guidance and for His blessings and for His protection. Most of all, His protection. For not all who come are friends. We beseech Him for His guidance and His blessings and His protection as we attempt to address and to explain the subject Islam and money, Islam and the international monetary system. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam with a basket of dates or a sa of dates and offered some dates to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. He looked at the dates and he said, Bilal, these are very fine quality dates. Where did you get them? Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu replied and said, O Messenger of Allah, I had 2 baskets of inferior quality dates, or 2 sa'as, and I exchanged them for this 1 basket of superior quality dates, or 1 sa'a of superior quality dates. That's how I got them. Bilal, said the Prophet ﷺ, that was the essence of riba. Now this is terrible, because if drinking whiskey is bad, riba is worse than that. If committing zina with your next door neighbor's wife is bad, riba is worse than that. You'll excuse me if I raise my voice because I want to shake the hearts sometime. This is the essence of riba. Riba, we know, is lending and borrowing money on interest. When money is lent on interest, Allah declares, that is not business. He says, Ahallallahu al-bay'a wa harrama al-riba. Allah has made business halal and He's made riba haram. So now to understand why riba is haram, we have to find out, well, in what way are they different? Business and riba. The last man in the world to ask that question is a banker. The difference between riba and business, of course, you understand it, that it is in the essence of a business transaction that you must embrace risk. You can either make a profit or suffer a loss. That's business. In riba, you don't have any risk. You either eliminate it or you immunize yourself from it by minimizing it. So you could only make a profit regardless of the size of the profit, no loss. Well, what's the harm in that? The harm is that when you eliminate risk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now faced with a people who have shut the door. He told them, don't shut this door. If you shut this door, I will not open it. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Don't shut this door, because if you shut it, I'm not going to open it. Which door? The door to risk, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can now cause some to suffer loss and others to get a gain. So He can distribute wealth and He can redistribute wealth, so that wealth will circulate through the economy. But now when that door is shut, when an economy is based on riba, lending and borrowing on interest, the rich will now remain permanently rich and the poor will remain permanently poor. If you still not understood, this book will help you. Took me 4 years to write it, The Prohibition of Riba in the Quran and Sunnah. And this one will help you to muster up the courage to read the bigger one, The Importance of the Prohibition of Riba in Islam. But there is another form of riba. If you meet a man coming to the market to sell his goods, and you buy his goods from him before he could enter into the market, and when he entered into the market, he finds out that he could have gotten a better price in the market, that's riba. Why? You exploited his ignorance of the market price to get a profit or a gain greater than that to which you were entitled. The Americans describe this with a very pretty phrase. They say, you ripped him off. That's riba. Namely, a transaction. You get a profit or a gain or an advantage to which you are not justly entitled. Riba. Tonight, we're going to be spending some time on this second kind of riba. So the Prophet said, Bilal, this is the essence of riba. What you should have done is to sell the 2 baskets. Don't look at me, don't look at him. Sell the 2 baskets of inferior quality dates and take that money and buy the 1 basket of superior quality dates. And so they had equal value, equal value. And so it was haram to exchange 2 baskets of dates for 1. It was riba. But Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu exchanged 4 camels for 1. And that was not haram. Why was this haram and that not haram? And Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu exchanged 20 camels for 1. These 20 may have been baby camels, and this one may have been a pregnant camel. And there was not haram. So the question we asked tonight is, why was it haram to exchange 2 baskets of dates for 1, and there was riba? But it was not haram to exchange 4 camels for 1 or 20 camels for 1. That's a good question, isn't it? You're lucky I don't have the time to question you tonight. To answer that question, we must go to another hadith. And you've all heard this hadith before, all of you. It is in Sahih Bukhari. The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam is describing a transaction in which there is an exchange of gold for gold, or silver for silver, or wheat for wheat, or barley for barley, or dates for dates, this is the one, dates for dates, or salt for salt. And he is declaring, once it is like for like, it must be equal for equal. 2 baskets on this side, you must have 2 baskets on this side. If not, it is riba. Why is it riba? Remind me to answer that question if I forget. Why would it be riba? If I exchange 2 baskets of dates for 1, why? Before we answer that question, and also remind me, because I forget, you know, remind me to answer the question, why is the 4 camels for 1 not riba? Okay. When we look at this hadith, there are 6 items mentioned. 2 of them are precious metals, gold and silver, and the other 4 may be described as commodities. What is there which is common to all 6 of them? There are 2 things which are common to all 6 of them. The first is this, that all 6 were used as money in the market in Medina. If there was a shortage of gold and silver coins, they would use dates as money in Medina. The second thing which is common to all 6, which the Prime Minister of Malaysia has only now understood, when the sun is already setting, is that in all 6, in all 6, the value of the money is in the money. In other words, in all six, the money had intrinsic value. I heard with my own ears the Prime Minister of Malaysia say a few years ago, of course he's going to be embarrassed now to be reminded of it. He said, money has no intrinsic value. Now he's backpedaling because now he's beginning to learn a little thing from us who are teaching this subject for years now. And so the two things which are common are, number one, all six were used as money. And number two, in every case, the money had intrinsic value. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to Sunnah money. You never heard of it before. You heard about the Sunnah, it's the beard. You heard about Sunnah, Salat. But you never heard about Sunnah money before. First time. What is Sunnah money? Sunnah money is either precious metals or commodities. And Sunnah money is money which has intrinsic value. I leave behind me two things. So long as you hold on to them, you will never go astray. The Book of Allah and my Sunnah. And this is also His Sunnah. And we've abandoned it today. This is riba. We will explain to you how it is riba. We've abandoned what we had as Sunnah money and replaced it with riba. We'll explain to you how. But wait a minute. This money, which is Sunnah money, is it also in the Quran? I mean, did we abandon the Quran as well? Oh, that would be terrible. So let's go to the Quran and see. When Yusuf alayhi salam was in the well, you shaking your head? Okay, he was in the well. The travelers came, fished him out of the well, and they took him to Egypt and they sold him. Surah Yusuf. وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَةٍ. And they sold him for a few measly dirhams. What is this word dirham? A dirham is a silver coin, precious metals. And then there is this ayah also in the Quran, in Surah Al Imran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the double standards of the Jews. And remember, it is not Imran Hussein who is speaking, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if they want to arrest anyone, they're going to have to arrest Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let them try to do that now. وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ مَنْ إِنْ تَأْمَنْهُ بِقِنْطَارٍ يُؤَدِّهِ إِلَيْكَ. And amongst the Ahlul Kitab, here it is the Jews, there are those who, if you entrust them with a qintar, 1,200 gold coins, it's about 350,000 US dollars. Could you kindly keep this for me safely? When you want it back, they will return it to you. Why? Because you're a Jew. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ إِنْ تَأْمَنْهُ بِدِينَارٍ لَا يُؤَدِّهِ إِلَيْكَ. But amongst them there are those who, if you give him a dinar, a gold coin, could you kindly keep this safely for me? When you want it back, you can't get it back. إِلَّا مَا دُمْتَ عَلَيْهِ قَائِمَةً. The only way you could get back your gold coin, your dinar, is if you stand there and you pound them and you pound them and you demand it and demand it and demand it back. Why? ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا. This is because they argue, لَيْسَ عَلَيْنَا فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ السَّبِيلٌ. We have no moral obligations to these ummiyun. We have no obligation to maintain an ethical standard with these ummiyun. Ummi, when we use the term, we understand it as one who cannot read and write, but when a Jew uses it, he uses it to mean one who is not a Jew. Gentile. وَيَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah said, but they tell a lie against me, and they know it's a lie. And so in this ayah of the Quran, there is the word dinar. So sunnah money is also money in the Quran. Dinar is in the Quran, dirham is in the Quran, and when Allah speaks of a dinar in the Quran, I can assure you tonight, in G-I-Y-C, he's not talking about a paper dinar. He's talking about a gold coin. Sunnah money is in the Quran. I leave behind me two things. So long as you hold on to them, you will never go astray. The book of Allah, and we've abandoned it. And my sunnah, and we've abandoned it. Why now was it haram to exchange 2 baskets of dates for one? Why was it riba? Answer: because dates were used as money. Since dates were used as money, if we permit a transfer of 1 on this side and 2 on this side, we will open the door for money to be lent on interest. That's why. Well, then why was it halal to exchange 4 camels for 1? Now that's an easy question. Who can answer that question for me? Yes? The 4 camels were male and the 1 was female. No, that's not the answer. Yes? That's the answer, correct. Because camels were not used as money. Did I tell you that story about the fellow who was paid his salary? He worked for the whole month, and at the end of the month he got his salary, and his salary was a camel. So he was taking the camel home when the camel died. So when he reached home, he said to his wife, salary died. Salary died. So wife said, go tell the boss. So he went and said, boss, salary died. Boss said, when I gave you salary, salary was alive. Salary was alive. Huh? Because animals are perishable, they can die, they can fall ill. If you use animals as money, you're going to have a mountain of problems on your head. And so animals were never used as money. Since animals were not used as money, you can have an exchange of 4 camels for 1, or 20 camels for 1. Now then, we've introduced you to Sunnah money. Now let us explain what are the functions of money. I need a haircut. And my wife says to me, Imran, I'm tired cutting your hair, why don't you go to the barber? So I went to the barber, Baba cut my hair. I've got to pay him now. So I offer him a copy of my book, Prohibition of Riba, in the Quran and Sunnah. The Baba looked at me with a very strange look on his face. He said, Sheikh, I am afraid I'm not interested in reading your book. How can I pay him? This is called barter. Barter has its limitations. As they found out in Yugoslavia, as they're finding out in Indonesia now, barter has its limitations. What I need is money, something which can function as a medium of exchange. I pay him for the haircut with money. He goes to the market and he buys tomatoes with money. That vendor comes, he buys my book, Prohibition of Riba in the Quran and Sunnah, with money. This is now money functioning as a medium of exchange. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created us with needs which cannot be satisfied except through buying and selling, must also have created money which can function as a medium of exchange. Sunnah money performed that function successfully. Yes, I know somebody will argue that it was not as convenient to have dates as money as it is to have some pieces of paper in your wallet. I know that argument. But the fact is that Sunnah money functions successfully as a medium of exchange. Second function of money. Second function of money. Every single home I went to in South Africa, every single home, it was a black woman. A black woman as a domestic servant. Yeah. And she was working from morning until night for the whole month. A black woman. So I scratched my head and I said, if that is Islam, I need to do some work here. Huh? That couldn't possibly be Islam. In every single home, a black woman, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, as domestic servants, working from morning to night. That's a recipe for disaster. How much shall we pay her for her labor? One of the functions of money now must be to be functioning as a measure, a value. What is the value of the labor of that woman? She works for the whole month, and a unit which she understands is a bag of corn. They call it mealie, the staple diet of the African people in southern Africa. So maybe 40 bags of corn, maybe 5 or 10 she would use for eating, another 5 she'd use for clothing, another 5 she'd use for transport and so on. 40 bags of corn would be a measure of her value, of the labor. But then there's a third function of money. So long as we use Sunnah money functions successfully as a medium of exchange and as a faithful measure of value, so that she always got what would be a just wage. But there's a third function of money. If I work for the whole month and I get a salary with which I can buy a camel, you remember, and I take that money home and I say to my wife, put it away. 10 years later when I take it out, 20 years later I should still be able to buy the camel. In other words, this money should faithfully preserve my 1 month of sweat. And Sunnah money did that all through history. Now let me introduce you to something very sinister that occurred. In fact, it was more than something haram, it was riba. But the Prophet had said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, about the riba which would come with Dajjal. What did he say? He said that it will be as difficult to recognize it as it would be to recognize a black ant on a black stone on a dark night. I mean, you don't need a PhD from the University of New South Wales to recognize. The only man who can see that ant, the black ant, on the black stone, on the dark night, is the one who has some light. You don't need a PhD to understand that. Huh? Nobody else can recognize it. Nobody else, not even a PhD from Al-Azhar University. You cannot recognize it unless you have Noor. And guess what? It isn't sold in the stock market. Noor. يَهْدِ اللَّهُ لِنُورِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah guides to His Noor whomsoever Allah wishes to guide.